Okay, we're gathered here again to talk about Mr. Roberts' article, which he wants to have put into the school. Oh, is it still his? It's still his article. Oh, okay.
I know.
This is an article. Okay, an article that they want to include in the school newspaper, and I know there are lots of concerns over the actual content of the article, and we want to figure out whether or not we can or should include this in a school loosely sponsored newspaper. And I wanted to get some of the opinions of the faculty, the students, and some of the parents. I'll start over here with the faculty, and I would like to hear from the faculty who are in favor of this article first.
Okay. And I'm taking notes, so please identify yourselves.
Okay. Faculty member Mark Fournier, in favor of. These students are writing opinion articles which they may or may not believe in, but it is a right of free speech. You may not agree with what they're writing, but maybe do you agree with what their political stances might be either. These are points that they're making. Other students are capable of making counterpoints on subsequent articles. And this might be a sort of an incendiary subject for some people, but so with Mein Kampf. But Mein Kampf should never be burned or just allowed to be shown and read by the students. This is part of history, and to not repeat history, you have to know what history involved, the good, bad, and the ugly. There was one town that attempted to burn all the books they had in the school that were in German, and it wasn't until some of the books were discovered to be the Bible that they decided to maybe rethink the value that they were questioning. So I am in support of this article. I think some of it might be factual, some may not be, but it's worth putting in to start a discussion amongst the students about politics and their values.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another faculty member who wants to speak on this issue?
Yes, my name is Karen Applebaum, and I am also a faculty supporter of the school newspaper. I believe that the argument, the strongest part of this argument is that this goes to the essence of why and how we educate our children. We not only educate them to what was past, but we want them to be thinkers about what is coming in the future. And in order to make them be thinkers, they have to be able to express themselves.
So can I ask a question on the town council again? Isn't what we're talking about here similar to the Ginsburg case? Isn't it matter that's harmful to minors that's getting out there? In other words, if an adult reads this particular article, no problem with that. But is the article of the same kind of nature as the booklets, the magazines in the Ginsburg case? Yes.
I'm not saying that we should not be reviewing the articles, that we can't, as any editor would be in any newspaper, might review an article and look for it as far as.
No.
I'm sorry. I thought I gave you this case.
No. I'm looking. I'm like, do you like this?
I must have taken it out of the last CD.
I'm like, okay.
That was the. Did you read it? Did you read it for con law, maybe?
No.
We got the
First Amendment
gist.
problem.
It was the whole notion of a variable obscenity.
Okay.
You know, it was the selling of girly magazines to young kids, and the court ultimately said something like, you know what might be not be obscene for adults could be obscene for children, and actually, you know, as a result or part of this issue, also states have statutes that prescribe things like that. So maybe you can still sort of answer the question generally. Is the free speech? Oh, okay, go ahead. I didn't mean to scare everybody.
We don't maintain that there shouldn't be any form of review for these articles, but we believe that's fine for a faculty member or for a teacher to review the articles, to decide what pieces of the articles may not be appropriate. But what we're saying is that you can't just take a black crayon and throw the entire article out, that is what offends their First Amendment rights. And that's what we believe wants to be done.
How does it affect, specifically Massachusetts statutes address this issue?
Well, it depends if this is a school-sponsored activity or if this is an independent activity. We're looking at right now that it's not necessarily school-sponsored. If it's school-sponsored, and again, we go back to the material disruption or offending another student, then the statute would address it. But again, we don't believe that will be any material disruption, because we do agree that there can be some form of review of these articles before they're published, but that they shouldn't indiscriminately be pulled out.
So are you referring to, when you said Mass Statute 7182, I know we talked about it before in terms of the red ribbons, but in terms of this particular issue, you were saying that we're talking about the students being able to write, publish, disseminate what are their views rather than the schools?
Well,
Is
the
that
statute says that the students do have the freedom to write, publish, and disseminate their
Yes,
views.
it does.
Right, that this expression cannot be denied, is it? And that's what we agree with that.
Okay, I still would like to, I want to hear from everybody else, but, Principal Joe, we should go around the room.
We should get around the
But I
room.
would like to come back to the issue of, while it might be these children's views, is it matter that is, that shouldn't be out there for other children to
Well,
see?
the standard in the statute is disruption and disorder, and there we.
Well, that has to do with freedom of expression, not publication.
But
Right,
we forget that this publication or newsletter is not a school paper, it's not during school time. This is sort of like, I wouldn't, don't want to use the word underground.
Teacher, right?
Yes, not an underground paper, but it's an auxiliary paper that the students have decided to put on with a little guidance from a couple of professors.
Okay.
So we're
Let's
just
hear
allowing
The
them.
teachers against.
Pardon?
We want to hear
from the teachers against
Okay.
this and what their
Katie and Ed.
concerns are.
Kate Fay, I'm a teacher against, and I do agree with Karen that students do have the freedom of expression rights. However, I would say that this article borders on hate speech. It speaks about blacks against whites, in that even though it is not necessarily a school sponsor, it can be associated with the school, where it is from the students. And that I do believe that it would be an article that would materially and substantially interfere with the requirements for the operation of the school, and it would cause disruption in the school if this article was to be published.
Excuse me.
Can we
Wait,
go around the room?
We have a question. We just don't know which.
Oh, you want to go off the record? I'm sorry.
Off the record. Which article are we dealing with? The one that was in
Free speech.
Hazelwood? Okay, so we're not dealing with the article.
No, the one I gave you, free speech.
Okay,
I'm
good.
sorry.
We're
Okay.
clear on
Is
that.
that hard?
Yeah.
So he's not making the speech,
Yeah.
No,
we're
if
just
you-
using that speech
We're
as
using
if
that
it were an
speech as
article.
being published in the school newspaper.
okay.
We'll get to him later.
Yeah, we're on exercise 2 of what I sent you out through the email.
Okay, well, we just didn't know if we were talking about the articles that were within Hazelwood or the.
No, using Hazelwood as support or not,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Ed is next.
Ed Walker, teacher. I agree with my colleagues. My question is if we're going to allow students to write articles such as these, that they have a responsibility to be good journalists and report both sides of the story. Obviously, this story is speaking from one side, and there's no attempt by the author to go out and interview or speak to others who have an opposing viewpoint. And that is my problem with that.
So you're not looking at it as an editorial, you're looking at it as,
Well, that's what we get, it's editorial, because if we allow that to happen without, as advisors to the paper, we wouldn't be doing our job, so we should be able to editorialize that because it's not being done properly.
So I have a question to either of the two advisors. Ed and Kate, are you familiar with the PICO case? Board of Education versus PICO. And so here's my thought, or I guess my question or my problem, that basically, isn't it true that the school can't censure, can't in this case delete, can't take away, can't remove books, just because of dislike of ideas? Is that what's going on here? Do you know what I'm asking?
I would say as faculty that no, it's not simply that we dislike. I honestly feel that based on the subject matter, that there would be a disruption in the school based, I mean, this almost speaks about borderline promoting racism. I mean, it speaks about, you know, neo-Nazis, basically. I mean, if you read it, it talks all about, you know, black against white.
But doesn't, may I interrupt? You can challenge what you
Joe's the moderator.
Oh.
I'll let him make the call.
A short point, I want to make sure everyone gets.
Because we want to hear everybody's idea
This
first.
article, if I recall the correct article, he's citing facts. He's not giving an opinion. He's talking about incidents that actually occurred that the media chose not to report on, to raise people's awareness of another side that they may not have seen. I don't think it's an insightful article. I think it's an article to make people think, rather than.
And let's, we need to hear from the parents to see if there's any sort of reaction they have. They've talked to their students, their children about this, and we need to sort of understand what they're thinking. Yes?
Stephanie Mello, I'm for the writing, a parent for the inclusion of the article. And I would just agree with the teachers that are for, like under PICO, it said that the librarians were not able to suppress the ideas just based on the political disagreement. And like Karen had said, this is not about facts. It's not about somebody's message and some opinion of what's going on. Like this is telling us that the media itself is already suppressing ideas, not only to children but also to adults. And by including this, you're just trying to like raise awareness that this is happening and starting in the schools. And under Chapter 71, Section 82, the students have a right to express themselves, to write, publish, and disseminate their views, and this is exactly what they're doing. And they're not forcing anybody to read it. And they're not saying an opinion like, "Oh, go out and do this." They're just saying that the media itself is suppressing these, and why are we not hearing about these stories?
Great. And, Jenna?
I'm Jenna Panopoulos, and I'm also a mother of a student. I'm for including this article because I second everything that Stephanie has said, because first of all, this is not taking place at school. This is an after-school activity that parents are either allowing their children to go to or not to go to, and that is a parent's right, just like it's their right to allow their child to watch a rated R movie at home or not watch a rated R movie at home. It has to do with...
Here's my concern as town council. Officially, it's not school-sponsored, yet all the activities associated with it occur in school. There are in fact teachers that oversee it. So does it sort of raise a red flag in terms of possibly liability on the part of the school, that it looks like the school sponsors it?
I understand what you're saying, however, in Section 82, it states that no expression made by a student in the exercise of their rights is going to be deemed an expression of school policy, and I think it helps the case the fact that this is occurring after school. The school has opened its doors and their classrooms after school hours to many other groups as well, and they can't close the door to a student run or a teacher, you know, helping a student run an article or a newspaper after school. It's not associated with the school. This is not being done during the school hours where it may be imputed to school officials. This is being done after school with the help voluntarily of a teacher, and it's not going to be put onto the school or represent the school.
Okay, and can we hear from the parents who are against this? Yes,
Jamie
Jamie,
Brzezinski.
yes.
Hi, I'm a parent, and I'm against publishing this article. We need to consider the emotional maturity of the audience, and that's our students. They're minors, and it could be harmful to them. Parents should have a say in what their children should be exposed to. And coming off of a more recent case than Pico, the Hazelwood case, it said that the school can exercise control over school-related or school-sponsored publications, and you need to reasonably perceive that it might incite danger, this kind of content. We need to protect our children, and I mean, we decide what our children can watch on television. We should be able to control what sort of violence or what kind of adversities are out there our children can learn about.
And you can as a parent, because again, you could tell your child not to take that newspaper, just like you tell them not to watch rated R movies, because this is not a sponsored event.
But that's at home. I'm sending my child to school.
But this isn't happening
I
in
put
the
trust
school.
in-
This isn't happening in school.
Well, we are disseminating it at the school, so.
The
it's
students
taking
are
place
disseminating
at
it,
school.
correct? Time out. Are the students disseminating it?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not-
they're handing out the
In the school building, it's
newsletters, you
being
know.
given.
Right, but it's
Yes.
not being, so the school isn't handling it.
Right, just the
Yeah,
students.
Right, okay, yeah.
But
So,
it's
yeah.
happening at school.
Right, but a lot of things happen at school that the children deal with, and it's not the fault and responsibility of the school to censor every child that is coming into the school.
I just don't think it's appropriate.
That was perfect. All right,
And do we have
moving
another,
on.
do we have another parent who's against?
You get a lesser start.
Elaine Mitchell against publication. It was just basically the insightful article. It's racially tinged with stereotypes that would make danger among the races. It just wouldn't be right for them to have to read that, and then they would be looking at each other thinking, oh, maybe.
But what test should the school use, you know, in terms of picking and choosing, you know, what articles should be in what looks to be a student-run newspaper?
Something that doesn't go to the level of being insightful and being racial, or maybe that has gang-related issues with it.
So you're actually afraid that someone expressing an idea, an observation of what happens in the press is going to rise to a level of something else? Do you see it as potentially causing violence?
Well,
or-
maybe it will depend on the school too. If it's a rough school, if those issues already exist, you know. But if it's maybe not as bad at the school, maybe it depends on that.
Let's move on to are these students now?
Yes, yes.
And I really do want to hear from some of the students.
So we have, I think, for and against, no, against and then for.
Could I hear from the students who are for first? Yes.
I mean, the article that's being published is not offensive. I mean, it probably be offensive for one side, but this is a fact pattern or an opinion of somebody. So it's not violating somebody's First Amendment right. It's not refusing the other side to write the opinion. It's one side writing one's opinion.
Does it
So-
matter whether it's offensive, though? Even,
Yeah, but
do you have an argument
it is-
that even if it's offensive,
Even if
they
it's
still have a
offensive,
right to publish it?
Yeah, even if it's offensive, the things the other side could argue. The school newspaper did not refuse to take an idea or an opinion or a fact pattern of the other side who is against this free speech writing, not to publish it. What happened is one side published this article and somebody is against it, and now they are raising an issue of First Amendment right, but I don't see a violation here at all.
And could I hear from the students who are against it also?
Yeah, we're the Leslie Osno student against this newspaper article, sir. We don't want this published because it's gonna cause a lot of problems in our school. We already have, you know, some racial problems. I noticed that like mostly the white people go in one door every morning, the black people go in the other door. And it's not that they have to, but it just happens that way because we feel separated. And something like this is gonna make it so much worse. And I'm afraid that it's gonna cause a lot of fights in school. And, you know, people are already, that know about this issue, of putting it in the paper even though it hasn't been published yet. They're already talking about it in classes and people are fighting about it. And I'm just afraid that it's gonna cause a big riot in our school. And the other thing that I don't like about this article is that it's not given a chance for the people who supposedly, these media bosses, these are all opinions. These facts, these crimes maybe did happen, I have no doubt, but the paper is about why the media didn't report it. And nobody has asked the media that. Why aren't they asking them, why aren't you reporting this? They're just making all these assumptions about it, that it's, because it's about white people getting killed instead of black. They don't know that for sure. Where's the authority on that? Why wouldn't they, if they're gonna print it, they should have both sides. They should be able to show why these people can give them a chance to defend why they
But is that the
don't want to
purpose
put it.
of, and I'm not sure, of a school newspaper like this? Doesn't the writer have the right to publish his or her views? And I've heard the proponents here point to both mass statute and case law that they sort of have what looks like almost an absolute right to express their views, where it's not officially published by the school.
So do they have an absolute right to write things that could be lies?
Yes.
Could be libel, slander, whatever?
Well, that's another issue, and that's not on the table today.
Okay, well, the basic idea here from the students is that we want a safe environment and we don't want to walk into school and feel that we're going to have racial riots. And I'm afraid that's going to happen because of this.
Okay, do we have a response to that? I mean,
Yeah.
And basically, what it boils down to is that the side that's against, be they students, parents, or teachers, are really afraid of disruption and disorder. And isn't that more important in some ways than the students' individual rights?
Yeah, but my name is Maria, and I'm actually in favor of this opinion, or however you want to call it. And the main reason is that if you read through it, it is not something that is causing any harm. The main purpose is to bring awareness that it is not okay just to bring out news or talk about things where black people have been injured, but also to bring awareness that there have been cases that this has happened to white people and it hasn't received the same type of response from the media. Whether this is, you can tell by just watching the news, and you see how many, how common it is to watch the news and see that this person, a black person, was convicted for murder, and then it ended up that he's actually, is innocent. But you don't see a lot of, this young or white person actually got into this altercation similar to a black person. But a black person tends to get more attention as of their rights have been violated.
So is the argument for inclusion of this article an argument that, no matter what, that a student or a group of students have the right to publish their views? And the reason why I ask that, I'm also thinking of, suppose you have a student that starts over Facebook or some form of social media intimidating or harassing another student or a group of students, would the school then have a right to step in? And, suppose it's done, on the school computer after school, for example. Sandy?
How I would look at it, in the statute it says that, that a student is allowed to express their views through speech and symbols. They're able to write, publish, and disseminate their views, but also to assemble peaceably on school property. To me, to assemble peacefully on school property, if this article is allowed, they're gonna cause riots. I don't see what's gonna be peaceable about it. I mean, it's gonna be a racist thing or some type of racially brought up, something's gonna happen. There's gonna be something, because there's already, in school, in our school, there's already cliques, for lack of a better word. So, I mean, everybody's all separated, and then you're gonna give these racial, even though people are saying that they're facts, it's also a view. It's a view of whoever's writing this, and these opinions are going to cause a lot of problems. So is that assemble peaceably
But
on the
shouldn't
property?
the
I don't think
students in
so.
school actually be exposed to all sorts of things? I mean, you've heard the term marketplace of ideas. Why is everybody laughing? Oh, because you're waving and I want to be, all right, fine, calling them Joe.
Okay, my name is Tanya, and I'm a student in favor of the article. But I'm not necessarily per se, my focus is not really the content of the article, but the problem is that I am definitely for people to express their opinion whenever they can, and they can voice their opinion in writing any way they want. Because people need to accept people's opinion and try to focus on, don't take it personal when people have their opinion, because later on in life, in politics, everywhere, they're gonna have to deal with it anyways. People are gonna be always stating their opinion in different type of ways. So you start at school, somebody come and you say what you feel. Even if you don't accept it, it's fine, life goes on, and you can go ahead later and say your opinion about it. And later on in life, you have to deal with it anyways, in a daily basis. So therefore, if you start like that, young in school, people go and you don't have to read it, you don't have to agree with it, but people should just be able to express what they feel or whatever factual they want to report, you can do that.
So no matter how unpopular or negative or even hurtful.
In the future, in politics, that's the way it works. So whether you are the president or the state representative, you're going to have people against you, people saying different things. So if we have to basically work on ourselves to just know that that's the reality of life. People are going to have different opinion. You're not going to agree with people's opinion, but you're just going to let it go and force your own opinion later. Then I don't think it should be a problem. Let people be free to say whatever they want.
I mean, it seems that the basic problem we have is that, what we have is that we seem to read that people have the students have a certain right of expression, and what I keep hearing is we're afraid of what might happen.
Right.
And that's a real concern for us. On the other hand, we're also concerned with the fact that we're going to get a lawsuit if we don't allow people to express their ideas.
And at this point, nothing's been disseminated, so it might behoove us to actually delete it from the newspaper. The person it's going to hurt is, the writer of the article, who I'm assuming really would like to have it published.
Isn't that exaggerating when we say that there's going to be rights and all these problems? Because this country has been dealing with racism in blacks and whites and blacks for years. So I don't think that this is going to be new for students, and the students are not dumb, they're educated. So I think they could be able to handle debate that this is not a new thing that just happened with issues between black and white. And
well, my concern is that indeed what Leslie was talking
yes,
about is happening.
Leslie said that it could create a division, and sometimes you see that. It's getting much better all the time, but sometimes that happens that whites and blacks, sometimes that division. It's still that there's that division because of what has been happening for years, and things are getting better right now. So just to assume that a newspaper article will create a big issue and problems, I think it's just a big exaggeration. And if you have a problem, then voice your opinion, write against it, and nobody's stopping that.
I'd like to go back to some of the faculty members.
Mark Fournier again, proponent of it. I think that to put in the paper is the way to go, because it may be incendiary enough to engage other students to respond to it. And I think by seeing the response, the writer of this article will find that he's actually a minority view in his opinion of things. He's actually discussing the media more than racism, but he's touching on the fact that racism is a fact in it, and he's trying to maybe have the media be more realistic of things. But I think this will engage the students who are tomorrow's leaders to determine whether or not he's right, and maybe the media needs to have a little pressure put on him, like the Wall Street protesters.
Did you say you're for or against?
I'm for.
Okay.
So I'm thinking to put it in the paper will help other students become involved with the issue in a good way.
So you're saying it would open the dialogue?
It would open the dialogue.
We're at least going to be looking at the issue whether or not.
The faculty against,
Yeah.
even if this board, call it a board for now, would determine that the writer was a racist, that the writing is in fact racist, is there an argument that, that writer is still entitled to this art use?
I would say no, because, I mean, racial speech is hate speech, which isn't protected. I don't feel, I feel that the
What authority do you
article.
have that?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Say it again?
What authority do you have for that?
I have too many papers in front of me.
Because the notion of the student's freedom of expression is not divided amongst what is okay to express and what is not okay to express, right?
Right.
It's balanced against the school's interest in order and discipline within the school.
Right.
So isn't that what we should be thinking about?
And that's what I had said when I first spoke, that
Okay.
it would, it doesn't go along with the school's basic education mission.
So I guess what I'm saying is, if we think that there isn't going to be huge disruptions, like Leslie says, that does it matter that that this article is intended to be racist? It's someone's viewpoint, a student's viewpoint that again has these rights pursuant to both statute and case law in Mass.
I would argue that it does matter. The article itself is offensive. In Hazelwood, the reason why the principal.
Okay, but it can be offensive as long as there's no disruption in the disorder. Right? I think some of the parents want to respond.
Okay, let's turn back to the parents. Stephanie.
Just Stephanie Mello again for the inclusion. I kind of had a lot of things to say. I just want to point out that under MGL Chapter 71, Section 30, it says that part of the moral education is to point out the evil tendency of opposite vices that happen in our society, and I think that this article shows us one of them. You know, we all deal with learning about racism in school, and we have to teach our young leaders how to deal with it. And maybe this will open up the forum so that they can learn to talk amongst themselves and deal with the situation that's happening in their society. And it might give them an opportunity to talk peacefully and try to, I would try if I was a school to make sure that they knew that if they were going to participate in debates or discussions about this, that they keep it peaceful and just raise maybe awareness to the students that they need to, in order, if they want to keep this right of expression and freedom of expression and keep the being able to write in the school newspaper about issues like this, then they need to make sure that they do it peacefully. And the minute that it turns violent or that it does disrupt the school, then it might be taken away from them and they won't be able to fight on that.
Ed?
Going back to Hazelwood, in that case, the court decided that schools would not have a public forum where anyone could come in and speak to students in a certain way, express their viewpoint. And the other thing Hazelwood said was that students, while in school, do not have the same rights and free speech as adults do. And I think that's what we're talking about here, that we're looking at this as if these students were adults that were speaking freely. This speech has to be regulated by the school to create a proper learning environment. If students were free to speak anywhere they want, we would have a large issue in our hands as far as the school creating a learning atmosphere for the students.
And how do you balance that with the Massachusetts statute?
Back to power.
We knew we had to come back to the statutes at some point, especially the Massachusetts one.
And in regard to Hazelwood that Ed just brought up again, is this newspaper indeed a public forum, or is it in some ways school sponsored?
Where do we want to go?
I think
Janet.
It is not school sponsored. however, I do understand where you're coming from, that it is taking place after school on school property.
Right.
Which means it would be a limited forum, and the school has the ability to close speech off, but if they open it in a limited forum, then they have to open it without having a bias against other students. So if it's being open at all after school for any group, then it has to be equally open for other groups. Therefore, if they have already opened it, they cannot stop the students from gathering to put together an article just because they don't agree with what the students are saying. And even if they are expressing views that some people might find racist or some people would find offensive, it's not child pornography that they're disseminating, it's not going to be obscenity, it's not insightful of illegal activity, and it's not fighting words.
But does it fall under the statute that, Stephanie bring up 7130?
Yeah.
30, yes.
More.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about that statute, it's the school, you know, acting as the state, parents patriae, concerned about the moral upbringing, you know, of the school students and so forth. So if you think about it that way,
But that's-
does this, go ahead.
I was just going to say that would be the school choosing their own viewpoint and pushing that on other students. So in this case, even if they are acting as parents patriae, they cannot just be for one side of this. And if the child wants to write an article regarding something that's going on in the news that he's aware of, or if he wants to do the complete opposite and write about that instead, the school should not be saying that they don't agree with it and that they want to protect other people from something that's actually occurring.
I mean, when you're thinking about offensive, you know, anything that's on the newspaper or on the media, wouldn't that be offensive for somebody and good for the others? I mean, if we are worried about if something's offensive for some people, then nothing is going to be on the newspaper, because anyway, some people are going to find some issues offensive, some not. And in this case, I don't see any racism. Just because one side expressed the opinion or their opinion about whites or being abused or being hurt, and the media should focus more in it, is not racism. It's not insulting black people in any way. It's saying that black people are being more favored than whites, and that's the opinion of this writer. So I don't see it to be offensive or racist.
I just don't understand why is this any different than what we have learned in history classes. Because you talk about Malcolm X, we talk about Martin Luther King, we talk about the Holocaust and all that, and you don't see people killing each other in the classroom. And we have been in history classes since, I don't know, early ages, and this is what, high school? Don't you think at this point we should have a little bit more tolerant about what we have to express and how people will respond to that? And maybe it is your job as teachers and faculties to monitor the reaction of the students, and maybe that should be something, we can use this article as a learning tool, and this is something that could be addressed in the classrooms.
I fully support.
I fully support
My student
daughter.
Thank you all. Is it going to be a good lesson when there's kids fist fighting in the hallway?
So let's we're gonna wrap up. Leslie, what did you say? I'm sorry. What?
I said, is it going to be a good lesson when the kids are all fist fighting in the hallways? Because it's going to happen, I'm guaranteeing it right now. Right now.
But then it would be happening after a history class.
There's disruption and disorder in here right now.
Then perhaps we could address the issue.
Definitely.
I just want, if people want to just sort of sum up their ideas, and I don't, do we want to go around with everyone? Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be every person, it could be every side, but if you want.
We'll start with Karen, and we'll just move down anyone who wants.
I was going to say, in support of it all, I really don't agree with the opponents wanting to squash this article, because it's equivalent to putting your head in the sand. The students and the society should not ignore the topic, and it's something you have to face, whether it's today or 10 years from now. It's something that's occurring, and you just can't ignore it.
Could I hear from the teacher on the other side?
I would say that we don't offend the First Amendment by exercising editorial control over this. And once again, as my fellow faculty member said, that the children in our school don't have the same constitutional rights that their parents have.
Okay, great. Let's hear from the parents now.
Okay.
I'll add a little bit, I think.
It wasn't really. Okay. So we're for the students putting this article in, and as we've said before, the school should be teaching moral education, and this is not an article that's going to incite bullying among students. It's raising awareness of, similar to what one of our students said, that you learn about all of this in history. This is something that everyone is free to express their opinions about, and it's not harming anyone, nor is it taking place during school hours. It's merely being disseminated by students, which they end up speaking about all of their opinions anyway.
And just to follow up, I just want to say that under Tinker, we decided that it was fear of oppression fear or apprehension of disturbance is not enough to overcome the right to freedom of expression, and this hasn't happened yet. And that under Chapter 71, Section 82, the students have a right to express themselves, and that they don't shed their First Amendment right at the school gate.
The parent against.
Jamie Bazansky. Just going back to what was discussed earlier by the faculty that are against this article, I'm totally for students expressing their opinions and ideas, but we need to be reasonable about it, especially taking into account their emotional maturity. They're probably 18 years old or less. We need to take that into account. And also, according to NGLA Chapter 71, Section 30, it states there that we need to take into account their age and capacity. And I think that's what it boils down to here.
Students against?
Yeah, I don't think we should have that in the newspaper here because, as I said, it's going to cause problems in the school and there's going to be fights. And also, for those parents who want, their kids to have rights and freedom and all that, so let them read it at home in the newspaper. So go online or watch TV, the news, you'll see plenty of this stuff on the news. Oh, yes, you will. So just let us be students and try to have a peaceful time at school and get along. And let us deal with all this stuff when we grow up. We'll have many of these issues to deal with when we get out of high school. Let's just have fun here, all right? The school's about fun.
Thank you. And could I hear for student 4? Yes.
Okay, Tanya, was student 4. I just wanted to mention that my friend and I are working actually on an article. I'm going to publish an article soon in next month. So we're afraid that because of what's going on, that our article don't get to go out to the public. So please, while making the decisions, if you can consider the other student that's going to have to publish in the future, and so they don't have to lose that opportunity to do that. Thank you.
I just want to answer what my sister Leslie said. Yeah, of course, kids need to have fun, but at the same time, education, and they need to face reality now when they're young. So we're not going to wait until they're 4 years old or they finish college to understand what's going on in our world today, where they're going to be shocked. So I think that they should read about it, know about it, and be educated about it. And it's the responsibility of the teachers when they go into the classroom and let them know what's going on in our world today. And everybody can have their, the kids should start to have their own views and opinions. And I think they will understand and grow with them. So I think to block them from reading and knowing and learning is not the right thing to do. That's not what our country's not.
So, Ms. Crow, what should we do?
I actually like the idea that we allow the students to publish this newspaper, and I like the idea that we don't put our heads in the sand in terms of when we have unpopular issues that come up, we can address them in the classrooms, and I think we have to do something. I also don't think that this rises to the level of creating a disturbance at this point, and we're being proactive in a way that would violate students' rights.
So then we can sue you when I get hurt in a fist fight.
Yeah. Do you think that similar to Hazelwood, where in Hazelwood actual names were used?
Sorry, what?
For real. Sorry. in Hazelwood, actual names were used, and what I'm thinking about is that, we also need to be careful that, again, it's not officially school sponsored, but, do we still have to sort of review, and I understand faculty would be doing that, what the students are writing, that they're not being specific. And while I really do think that the viewpoint of this writer is racist, but I understand that that person, being a student under the laws of the Commonwealth, has a right to freedom of expression. So I agree with you that it shouldn't be deleted, but at the same time, I would be careful of a writer like this, you know, writing articles that might pinpoint actual groups of students in the school, and then we should, you know, be stepping in.
There's clearly a point where we can step in. I'm not concerned. I'm not sure that an article about journalistic practices around the country rises to the same level as as talking about specific parents or specific girls who are pregnant or whatever. So, but on the other hand, now we need to bring Randall Robert up on disciplinary charges.
That's right, and actually I want to do this differently, okay? So rather than debate the article itself, which we kind of debated to death right now, let's assume that we're all school people, all right? We're all school people. You can be whoever you want, a teacher, principal, vice principal, I don't care who you are. And we know that Randall Roberts did something wrong here. We want to take some disciplinary action against him. So we're wondering what kind of disciplinary action, what rights does he have? You know, what liabilities do we have? Mark, you had a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It says, as article, it's a speech in support of his election. Is he running for election, or is it, he's been elected and this is like his concession speech?
What do you want it to be? So there was
Well,
a school,
if he-
there was a
If he
assembly
was
where they all
running
were
for
giving
election and this
speeches.
was coming in, it would probably kill his election as president. If he was already elected and the speech came in, then it'd be horrifying to the
Okay,
whole
he's
vote.
not elected yet, he just did this, yeah, he did the speech, so the teachers that were in the assembly, like, grabbed him and brought him down to Joe's office.
So wait, what did he do wrong? We're saying
He read the speech.
He read the speech.
So we're saying that it was wrong.
We're saying it's wrong, so
We're
don't
saying it's
debate
wrong.
the substance of the speech
We being the
itself.
school.
We wanna do something, all right? Disciplinary wise, okay? We've kinda had it with Randall Roberts.
So are we assuming that the school said he can't read it?
He already did, he's in big trouble now, Liz.
He's sitting in front of us.
He's sitting outside he's sitting outside the principal's office waiting, all right?
Is he white?
Is he gay?
Is he gay and white?
So it's similar to the fact that you had to be approved to have speeches approved before you give them at school? Is that what it's similar to?
What do we want to do? Somehow
So he just said it when it should have been approved and he switched it last minute?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we can do that, all right.
And we're dealing with punishment. Is that?
Okay.
Well, what are we talking about now? Similar, in a way, similar to the golf case in terms of rights, because we're talking now procedural due process, right? But now we're talking about a student rather than a child being subjected to delinquency proceedings, right?
Right.
So now we as the school have to be careful about what, you know, what kind of valid legal disciplinary action we can take. What are his rights? So, okay, we'll throw out a few more facts. Suppose that Randall Roberts, maybe we'll put him.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
This isn't
So
the
he's
first.
been, okay.
This isn't the first time that he's done this, and
Or
there's
something like this. He's acted up in classrooms before.
To
He's
get
received
attention.
detentions. He once had in-school suspension.
Right.
All right, so that, now you know his record. But he's an honor student.
and he's
Okay.
and college is just around the corner for him.
Then,
So.
then I fail to distinguish the difference between his publishing it in a newsletter.
Okay,
or
we're not
reading
debating
it
that, we're not
verbally.
debating that.
Okay.
We're not debating that, we're not debating the substance of it right now.
He
We're
gave a
going to
speech.
discipline him.
He gave a speech.
We
which
made
we
that
find-
decision.
Which we find offensive, and we want to know what we're going to do.
So we're to forget about what just happened, right? Like
Yeah.
wipe
We're gonna say never publish
slate
newsletter.
clean,
This is just a
wipe the
speech he
slate
gave.
clean from the
Okay.
last discussion.
He gave-
right?
we-
Wait, stop, everybody, stop. The principal has decided that he did something wrong, the principal, because the kid was brought down to the principal's office. Now the principal, in compliance with, his boss, the superintendent, and the handbook, and the laws and regulations of Massachusetts, is thinking to himself, all right, what am I gonna do to this kid? I have to be careful, not violate his rights. So what are his rights? The decision's already been made to discipline. Stephanie.
Stephanie Mello. I just want to point out that under golf, we need to give him notice, and we probably need to contact his parents and advise them that something will be done and that they will need to come and speak with us.
Is that for any punishment?
Okay, wait. Why do we need to give him notice? What rights of his are at stake?
His due process rights.
What do we mean by that?
That the
Due process is like living
Right.
property, right? So what, as a as a student in school,
He
right?
is under due process, you're given the right to notice and the opportunity to be heard.
Okay, but before you get to that point, you have to ask if that person, what is process due? Think of two questions, with procedural due process, think of these two questions. Number one, before you can get to what process is due, is process due?
Yes.
Process was due to golf because Jerry Golf and kids like him are likely to get taken away in handcuffs, lose their liberty, put away in DYS somewhere for, a long time. Okay, so that was clearly a property right in terms of the question, is process due? So what kind of rights does Randall Robert have that might be similar but not as
His liberty.
fundamental?
Education.
Education's not a punishment.
It's not a fundamental, it's a liberty though.
So
Yeah,
what
it's
case
a
that we
liberty,
read
right.
talks about education?
Lopez.
Lopez talks about the procedural due process rights, but what case, and maybe I didn't
Well,
give you this
in
one either, wait a
Lopez-
minute.
He was suspended for
Did I
10
give you
days.
Doe?
Yeah,
I did, okay.
In Lopez, he was.
No, stop. Before we get to decide what process he gets, we have to first determine that he even has rights to begin with. So I just heard Doe be superintendent of, what was it, Worcester? I forget what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What does the Doe case tell us? In terms of right to education? Does Randall have a right to come to school every day?
Yes.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, really?
there's no-
Where do you read that? Where does that come from, that he has a right to be in school? Mark?
Well, it says he has a fundamental right to an education. in the
It
sense
does?
that- In the sense
No,
of
it doesn't.
equal opportunity,
No.
a right that he may lose by conduct that seems detrimental to the community. That's what it came out of Doe.
Can't
Under
do
Mass,
that,
student
because
to
you were
provide a
making the
safe-
same argument with parental rights before, throwing around the word
I have it.
fundamental.
No constitutional right
It
to
says,
education.
Go ahead,
Mass
Leslie.
General Laws, Chapter 269, Section 10B,
What?
there's no constitutional right to education in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Says it
yeah,
in
based
Doe.
on Doe and common law.
Right, there's no
So that's not the issue.
constitutional
Then-
right to the education.
So, what does that mean? Does that mean, balance that with what Mark said, there's no fundamental right to public
But there's
education, but what? Because that last piece that you said.
But there's no fundamental right to an education in the sense of equal opportunity. The student has a fundamental right to education in the sense of equal opportunity to the education. And equal rights you may lose by conduct that seems detrimental. So if you're expelled, you can be homeschooled and you still have that right, but you don't have the right to remain in school. Schools have a duty to provide a safe and secure environment for all children to learn. And they have a right to expel if it is on a rational basis.
Okay, all right. So again, no fundamental right to education. It's not a fundamental right. It's some kind of right, just like in terms of the parental rights, 14th Amendment rights, to bring up their children. It's not in the Constitution, but it is some right, but it's a lesser right. So we compare students in school, and we're going to get, next week we're actually starting the neglect and abuse, the care and protection part of the course. Then we'll get to delinquencies and chins and so forth, but we're going to keep coming back to a lot of these issues. And we're going to see, for example, most children go to school. So they may be engaged in some act in school under which they fall privy to the school's disciplinary process, but that act in school may also make them fall within the jurisdiction of the juvenile court, and it being a crime. So in that case, just like Jerry Gault, we would be then talking about fundamental rights. So when you talk notice that Stephanie brought up before, that the notice in a delinquency case is far different from the notice that the principal says, go home, Randall, we've had it with you. You're going home today. That's your notice. So you can make a decision like that on the spot as a principal. The student then does have some rights, so let's talk about those rights. So is process due? Yeah, some, right? So what process is due? Suppose he wants to suspend him because he's had it, he's had detentions before, he's been in trouble before, he wants to do that. The principal wants to suspend. So then we're talking Goss v. Lopez, right, Leslie?
Yeah.
So then what does he have to do to make sure that he's ensuring that the student is being guaranteed his procedural due process rights as a student?
In Rose v. Lopez, students were suspended for 10 days without a hearing. And the court held that the student has a right to protection under due process and should be given notice of charges and an opportunity to
Opportunity to be what?
To present his version.
Opportunity to be heard. Notice, opportunity to be heard. So that's like the lowest sort of level of procedural due process. And all school students will have that. An opportunity to be heard may just mean Randall telling you on the spot, well, I'm not going to give this blah, blah, blah. Or depending on the suspension itself or depending on the expulsion itself, maybe a school hearing, after the fact as well. But the decision to remove him is not like, okay, you're getting notice now that, but you can have the hearing first. So it's not the hearing first. It's the notice is you're gone. Yeah, but we'll hear you. We'll hear you. You can come back, or you can tell us now, or you can come back with your parent, or I'll call your parent. So very low in terms of procedural due process. And you'll see that quite often with the school cases. Notice that I gave you a case that dealt with the double jeopardy issue.
Yeah.
Right? So what does that case stand for? I just brought up that a student might, a young child might do the same thing.
It's not the same punishment. It's not
And it's not double jeopardy. So the school can do whatever, within the school's duties and responsibilities and rights to that student. That child can also be prosecuted for the same offense, and it's not double jeopardy. But under the prosecution, the child would have more rights, such as?
Right to counsel.
Right to counsel, Gault, right? What else?
Cross-examine, which is not.
Cross-examination. and confrontation, not right to appeal. Not under Galt, because remember when Jerry Galt brought up in his argument at the lower level, he argued right to appeal. The Supreme Court did not decide right to appeal. Although statutorily, and you'll see it when we get into the mass statute, all of these kids in the delinquency cases can appeal the cases. So so some of these rights turn out to be statutory, and some, according to the common law. So Randall Roberts, no right to counsel. Yeah, he can go back with his parents, but the principal isn't obligated to tell them, oh, you have a right to an attorney. We'll provide one for you. No way. The school's not going to do that. Questions?
In Lopez, it said that longer than a 10-day suspension could require greater rights.
That's right.
And have cases actually articulated what, if there is a line above that?
Yes, and you're going to see, I think I mentioned earlier 7137H1/2, which is the right of the school to suspend and ultimately expel a student who's been charged with a crime. That student has extensive procedural rights pursuant to that statute as well. So as you can see, the more serious sort of, in terms of the student's behavior, and the more serious the punishment, the more the procedural protections. But for the most part, if it's a school case, it's going to be notice and opportunity to be heard, which is the lowest form of procedural protection.
I think if the suspension is for a couple of days and there will be a hearing, and I don't think that's going to be an issue, because
That's right.
There will be a hearing, but 10 days is a lot of days. And
That's right.
Yeah.
Ed?
Not that I was ever suspended when I was a kid. Is the hearing part where they say you have to come back with your parent before you get back to school, is that considered the hearing part?
It could be. It could be for the temporary suspensions, and the notice could be, telling the kid, calling the parent, and I'm suspending Randall today. He's been in a lot of trouble before, and we're sending him home for exactly.
But does the school have to offer that opportunity to be heard, or can the school just say we're suspending him, and then the parent has to ask for that opportunity?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, most of the schools are going to notify the parent. If you're saying
They're not required. I mean,
the
notify.
opportunity to be heard can be, again, very informal. It's just tell me your story, Randall. You're in my office. I'm suspending you. What's your story? And so it could be as low level as that, the opportunity to be heard, or it could be more of a full hearing, again, depending on the case itself.
But the school doesn't have to offer it.
Again, depending on the case. Yeah.
And that, when a student is to return back to school, can they have like a condition? For example, if a kid is supposed to return to school with his parents, he goes back to school and then he's told that if he doesn't apologize to the teacher, then he goes back to a suspension and gets suspended for another week. Is that right?
No.
That's another hypothetical.
No, it's actually, it could be, but it's real.
But it's real.
It is real, and I just found it doesn't make sense.
That's the thing too with, notice that, we just mentioned that the kids, neither the child nor the parents are going to be having attorneys in these instances unless they on their own procure a private attorney. And most parents don't, and they don't know their rights. Especially, a whole other issue is all the special education stuff as well. So you have attorneys that actually specialize in this area, but again, a lot of parents, for economical and other reasons, just don't avail themselves of it. So in the instance that you brought out, it could be that the kids' rights are being violated, and and the family's rights as well. But
I was a teacher in the school system for 20 years, and usually most of the policy is that, like she said, that the parents have to come back in, and the school makes their own policy on what their expectations are
exactly.
It's written, everything is written, it's not something that's
Absolutely,
made
so you
up.
have the handbook that the students and the family gets ahead of time. You know, have the rules and we'll talk later on about, the valid rules and regulations of the school in terms of students disobeying, policies and procedures like that. So, remind me on Tuesday, we'll change around the sides, because now we're gonna be talking care and protection case where there are truly 3 sides. One side being the state, the Department of Children and Families, the other side being the parents, the other side being the children. And on Tuesday, so I'll be going through the statutory procedures, but I'll give you like a little hypothetical and think about, as you read the statute and the article that I gave you, think about, how a case, how a family gets to the attention of the department in the first place, and how a case actually gets to court as well. So we have, by the way, here, what's going on is both agency law, because the department's an agency, so, and as well as procedures in court if the department ends up filing a care and protection case. So we have not only Chapter 119, we have the regulations of the department. We have the department sometimes acting as a quasi-judicial body, fair hearings and whatnot. And then we have the common law already as well, because all the cases get appealed, just like the murder cases. They appeal them all because they have a right to appeal them. So there's tons of case law. I've only given you some of it in the CD. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you assigned yet any of the Monday things?
Do me a favor, if you haven't already, send me an email with like maybe 2 or 3 dates that you'd be available. If you're really flexible, tell me you're really flexible. And I'm gonna start scheduling from Mondays in the juvenile court, and that's usually 9 to 1. So, send me, look through your calendar till, May, and give me, give me 3 dates, and I'll start scheduling people.
Only Mondays?
Well,
Because I work Mondays and Wednesdays, and then
okay, occasionally I'll see what I can do about a Friday, for the most part Monday, unless you absolutely can't make Monday, then let me know, okay?
Okay.